Well, good evening, my friends, and welcome back. Cumberland Outdoorsman out here at my shooting bench that I've kind of used as a workbench because I wanted to spend some time this afternoon outdoors because it's just so pleasant here. The last few days the temperature has really gone down. It's been quite cool. This morning it was like 54 degrees before I went to work, and I mean it was really a little bit chilly out here. Temperatures are going to go back up. It's still summertime, but I thought this evening while I was out here I need to go ahead and do some service work on one of my old vintage creek fishing rigs. This reel here needs a little bit of work. I'm going to clean it out and put it back together. I'm going to show you how to do that. And I've got several other reels here on the table. I'll show you what I've got. Here I've got an old Shimano Bantam. This is the Mag Plus. Many years ago this was the reel of the day, and let me tell you that a lot of tournaments have been won with these old Shimanos. Super smooth now and still very functional. I remember when I first got this reel I restored it because you couldn't even turn the handle. I mean, it was locked up and I didn't want to force it, so I took everything apart, cleaned it. It was a mess inside, I'm telling you. I mean, this thing was so caked up and I mean just a real nightmare. I was actually contemplating just throwing it away and getting another one, but I got it all apart, got it cleaned up, re-lubed, and I tell you what, it's one of the better reels that I've got because it's so smooth, casts really well. I know it's old-timey, it's vintage, but that's the appeal for me. I like these old reels like this, and they're built like a tank, you know, all metal down here with a metal frame, an anodized aluminum spool with steel bearings. Just a really good reel. And then here I've got a little bit newer reel. This is an Abu Garcia Black Max. I've been using this one out on the lake, and also when I creek fish. I love to go creek wading for smallmouth, rock bass, spotted bass, occasionally a largemouth bass. But I dropped this one here in some mud on the side of the creek accidentally, and it got a bunch of sediment in it under the handle here and here in the worm gear and everything, and I didn't want to use it anymore. I dipped it in water and flushed it out as much as I could, but it still had this grittiness to it, so I took it completely apart, cleaned it, lubed it, and now it's back to perfectly smooth working condition. Good little reel. I think these are still sold new, these Abu Garcia Black Maxes. Has the magnetic backlash control right here. It's a really handy little reel. I love the way it fits in your hand, you know. Cast really well, and then when you're retrieving, I mean, it fits right there in the palm of your hand. Great little reel right here. And then I've got another reel here. This is a little bit more expensive reel. This is a Team Daiwa V. And this is a super nice reel. I mean, just absolutely wonderful. Very expensive back in the day when I bought it. Made in Japan, but just rock solid and casts a mile. I mean, this thing casts better than just about any other bait caster I've ever used. I know they have a new reel now called the Tatula, and I may get one of those because I just like these old bait casters, especially Daiwas. And this one here has been absolutely wonderful. I've never had a problem with this reel. It's functioned flawlessly from the day I've gotten it. But I took it apart a few years ago and cleaned the gears and re-lubed it, and it's still just super smooth. I mean, there is no grittiness or any kind of stiffness to the way it reels, and it casts, like I said, just absolutely a mile. I mean, it casts really far. Has the infinite anti-reverse, just like all the new reels. It's also quite compact, a little bit larger than the others, but not too bad. And just makes a good bait caster that would last you for probably a lifetime. And then here I've got another Daiwa. I think you can tell what kind of reels I really like. This is a PS2-5B Super nice reel. Not quite as smooth as this one here, but awful close. Casts very nicely, retrieves quite well, has a high-speed retrieval, 5.2 to 1, has a flipping option here for flipping, and then also a reverse option to reverse spool in case you get a backlash and you need to get that cleaned out, or for whatever other reason. Has a good functioning positive drag, just really nice. And I serviced this one here because I bought this one on eBay and somebody had put it together incorrectly, and it was just really rough. I mean, you could feel everything working inside here. You could feel the gears and everything, but I got it where it's just working flawlessly now. Great little reel, casts very well. You could cast with this all day long and it will never wear you out. Now what I've got on the table here is this little Daiwa PM10 Procaster. Very attractive little reel, but it's got a little bit of hesitation to it. Just see, it doesn't flow quite as smoothly as the other reels that I've serviced, so I'm going to take it apart and clean it out, and then I'll take you through step by step exactly how to put this back together. And then once we get it together, in part 2 we're going to go creek fishing for some smallmouth, maybe a few rock bass, who knows, whatever decides to hit the bait. But you can see there it's a little bit sluggish, so I think we can improve the function of this reel quite well. So follow along. If you own one of these old reels, this is the video for you, because there's not many videos out there on maintaining these old bait casters. So stay tuned. I think you'll find this very interesting. All right, first thing I want to do is take this reel off the rod, of course. And there's a few things you're going to need before you get started. First, a cup of coffee. You're going to need some patience, so a cup of coffee is very handy, you know. Then we're going to need a few tools. You're going to need a basic screwdriver set like this gunsmith screwdriver set here, and then some small screwdrivers. Here I've got a really small set right here. Then I've got this pick right here, a probe. You're going to need that. And then a set of metric sockets. Most nut fasteners on these reels are metric because a lot of them are foreign made. And then I've got some cotton swabs here. I've got some reel grease. I'll show you what this stuff looks like. Really slick stuff. I mean, super slick. And then I've got some reel oil. This is synthetic oil. It's kind of a really thin, fine synthetic oil. And then I've got some of this stuff here I got years ago, this Prolong. I really like this for cleaning out gears and the housings. I just give them a quick spray and then clean it out. This helps lubricate everything, and it has an anti-friction lubricant in it, so I leave some of this actually on the metal parts, and it makes the reels just work so much smoother. So I'm going to go ahead and get this reel taken apart, and then I'll show you how to put it back together. Remember, when you take things apart, be careful and use the right tools. And then I'll show you the correct order to get this thing back together. Okay folks, in order to check this bearing here, I like to use one of these cotton swabs, and I push down on that bearing just a little bit and see if there's any grittiness at all. If that bearing feels smooth, unless there's a lot of dirt in here, as you can see there's not, there's really no reason to take any of this apart. This is your magnetic backlash control, and it can be a little tricky. I'll have a video coming up sometime in the future where I take all of this completely apart and show you how to get it back together, but for now we're going to leave this the way it is. This part of the reel is in good shape. Next, check your line retrieval worm gear, which is right here. That seems to be in pretty good condition here. I don't feel anything out of the ordinary. That's turning very smoothly. I think that's in good shape. So we're not going to worry about this part of the reel. As you can see, these older reels here have a metal frame. That's metal right there, and it's riveted together here. This is metal, and all the cross pieces here are metal. So pretty good construction on these old reels. Now on these spools here, be careful, because sometimes there'll be a bearing right here and that bearing will fall off and you can lose it very easily. So make sure you don't have any bearings falling off of your spool. Keep up with any small parts like that, and be sure to put the bearing back in place where it came from. Now we'll get to the meat and potatoes of this little reel here. There's another bearing right here. This is a steel ball bearing, and that one there I feel a little tiny bit. Not bad, but just a little bit. And as you can see, there's some dirt there on the end of that. So we're going to clean that bearing up. And I want to take this housing here apart. These are your inner workings for the gear drive and for your drag as well. So we'll go ahead and remove the spool tensioner. And we'll check it out, because the spool actually goes through the middle of that bushing and rides against that copper disc inside there. And most all these reels are built pretty much the same. I've had a bunch of them apart and there's not a huge difference, generally speaking. There you can see there's a little bit of dirt down there at the bottom of that copper disc. So I want to clean that out. Put that bushing back in place. And I'm going to apply 1 drop of oil to that and then set it aside. One drop. That's all that's necessary. Okay? Set that aside. Now, this is where these tiny screwdrivers come in handy. Here you got 2 steel screws that hold this whole thing together. Go ahead and remove this and try to keep up with all these little tiny parts, these little screws, because they're so easy to lose. Alright, now the cover just lifts right off. Okay, I can see right away I've got a little bit of dirt and some discolored grease right here. There you can see that grime right there. We need to get all that cleaned up. And then I'm going to go ahead and remove this main gear right here. And remember, the anti-reverse is attached to this gear at the bottom. There it is. Set that out of the way for the moment. And then you've got this yoke, and there's two tiny springs that keep tension on that yoke right there. So we'll move this drive gear out of the way. As you can see, there's a little bit of dirt and grime on that drive gear. We want to get that cleaned off really well. You'll see what's on this gear. There, you can see that dirt. And a lot of that is just metal wear from a lot of use, you know, from cranking that handle thousands and thousands of times. Let me tell you, this reel here is in great shape compared to some of the others I've serviced in the past, you know. Now I'm going to go ahead and clean all this up, and then I'll be back with you when I get ready to reassemble it. That way you'll know how to put everything back together the way it's supposed to go if you have one of these old reels. I want to go ahead and clean this off real well. What I've got here is some brake cleaner, and that'll break loose a lot of the old grease, and it'll also blast away any sediment or any grime in this old reel. You want to make sure and get all this stuff off of here. Now let's check that bearing again. Now that I've got it all cleaned off good. Yeah, that's a lot smoother. Okay. Now I'm going to spray it down with this Prolong and then blow dry it off a little bit. Okay, I got everything cleaned up really well. I got these gears cleaned up. I got this base plate cleaned up, the bearing, the anti-reverse. Everything is ready to go back together now. So what I want to do is start adding a little bit of lubrication here. We'll start with a little bit of this reel grease. And right here, I want to put just a small amount of it where this piece right here engages and disengages the drive. I want that to be really smooth. So we'll put some fresh grease right there. Just a thin coat of it is all you need. Okay, on a lot of these old reels, you've got these little tiny springs like that right there. Make sure you keep up with that stuff, because if it's not on there, the reel's not going to work right. Remember, just a small amount is all you really need. Now we'll work it back and forth. Wow, that's really smooth, folks. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and install the yoke with this gear right here, and I want to put a little bit of grease on that, right where that yoke and gear come together. That gear sits inside that yoke just like that. think you can see that. And I'm going to put a drop of oil on each one of these posts right here, just to make sure that goes up and down like it should. Okay. Now there's a tiny thrust washer. It's kind of a tensioner that fits right here on this shaft. I got a drop of oil up here because I want to coat that whole shaft in oil, this synthetic oil. And we'll go ahead and put that on there. Like I say, keep up with all these little tiny parts. That goes on there just like that. Okay? I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Maybe you can see that. Right there. Put another drop of oil on that. Now on the bottom of this main gear right here, you have an anti-reverse gear and an anti-reverse pawl. This is kind of a little deal that engages this gear. I hope you can see the way that's supposed to go on there. It's got two little steel spring legs there that actually straddle that gear. And that's the way it's supposed to go on. Okay? I want to put a little bit of grease on that gear. Because that's kind of a high wear item right there. I mean, that thing's constantly riding on that anti-reverse gear. So we want to make sure we got a good amount of lube on there. Okay, we'll go ahead and install it. Make sure that the teeth are engaged so that it looks just like that. Now we'll go ahead and slide this on here. Here you've got a post right there that the anti-reverse pawl goes against, that actually mounts. There's a little tiny hole. That black post right there is where it mounts. I'll tell you what, let me put a little bit of lube right here at the base of the post, because that's where that gear is going to be riding. Okay, get it lined up. Don't force anything. We're going to go ahead and apply a little bit of grease to this gear all the way around. Don't worry about it too much because it's going to distribute itself evenly as you use the reel. Okay? Now on this bearing right here, make sure you hold everything together here. On this bearing you want to put one drop of oil. Doesn't take much. There you go. That's all you need. Now we'll go ahead and put our springs back on our yoke posts right here, because that will return the yoke in the downward position when you start reeling. Okay? We'll go ahead and put our housing back on here. Get everything lined up just like that. Now you take your tiny little screws here. Like I say, this is just kind of a quick service job for this reel because I want to use it this weekend on the creek, and want to make sure it's working right because there's still some fishing weather left this summer. And there you have it. There's that part, ready to go back together. Okay? Okay. That's working great. Now then, let's get this spool put back in place. We're going to put 1 drop of oil right here on this bearing, just like that. I want to make sure that this spool is clean here. Let's drop this spool back in place. Make sure your line is not interfering with the edge of your spool anywhere. Okay, we'll pull it on through and get it out of the way here. Now, right here, where this auto cast lever is, you want to lube right in here. Okay? Let me take that loose right there. Let me wipe that down. There you can see the dirt. Get that cleaned off. Here as well. Now, go ahead and lube the sides of this auto cast lever, where you push down, or spool release lever, whatever you want to call it. Okay, got that back in place. Now then, we know we have the bearing and everything lubricated here. And now it's time to go ahead and put this main assembly back on this reel. Make sure you got everything lined up correctly. Just like that. Okay? Now, since we've already serviced the spool tensioner here, we'll go ahead and reinstall it. Make sure you don't cross thread this. It should go on freely, you know. Go ahead and snug it down a little bit so it don't come loose, but don't over tighten it. You want to feel just a little bit of side to side movement on your reel. Just like that. Okay, I know I've got all my drag washers and everything else installed correctly here. What I want to do is put a drop of oil on these threads right here, on each side, because that'll keep us from cross-threading this star drag. Carefully put this back on. Don't cross-thread it. Okay? Go ahead and push down on the spool release auto cast. When you put this star drag back on the reel, make sure you don't cross-thread it. Be very gentle with it. Make sure it's on there good and straight, and then just spin it on there like that. You should be able to do it with one finger. Now I can go ahead and snug down these screws. And these little thumb nuts on the side here that hold everything together. Now we got this handle spring that goes right here, just like that. And I'll tell you what, we'll go ahead and put a drop of oil on each one of these handles here. Kind of work it in. That really helps smooth it up quite a bit. Also, one drop of oil right here on the side. I like these little bait casters to work flawlessly. We'll go ahead and put this nut back on here. Got that tightened down. Okay, now there's a tiny thrust washer, just like that one right there, on most of these reels. Go ahead and install it. We're going to put a drop of oil right there on top of that. Now you've got this little bitty C-clip. Be careful with this thing because it can jump off of there real easy. So easy to lose these little tiny parts. So be careful when you put this stuff together and when you're taking it apart. Now, put your finger over the end of this and then push it in place. Just like that, okay? Now what I want to do is put a drop of oil on each side of this worm gear at the bottom. That's so that your line can be distributed evenly on the spool. Well, I'll tell you what, that is as smooth as butter. I mean, I don't feel anything. Working perfectly. Okay, then you want to install your nut cover. Put your screw back on right here. Once again, make sure you don't cross thread it. Just get it on there nice and straight. I'll tell you what, that reel right there feels just as good as the day when it was new. Well, friends, I know it was a little bit tedious watching me service this reel here, but as you'll see from the second part of this video, it's going to be well worth it because we're going creek fishing for some smallmouth bass, maybe even some rock bass, you know. And I know there's spotted bass and largemouth in these creeks that I go to, and that's where I like to use these little reels. So let's go ahead and get it put on the rod here, get it mounted back on the rod, because I really want to take it out fishing this weekend, and we got some warm weather coming up, some hotter weather, so it'll be nice to get in the creek and do a little fishing. Well, I tell you what, that feels absolutely dynamite. Great little setup right there. I know that in most cases, if you're a creek fisherman, you like to use a spinning rod and reel setup, you know, but I just absolutely love this little setup right here because I can make very accurate, fine casts with it. And with this rod right here, this is a graphite rod, I can feel the slightest little twitch on the end of that line. And I'll be able to set the hook on just about anything that hits my bait. And with these reels right here, there's no delay, you know, They're just great working and good functioning little reels. That's why I like them so much. And I know they're vintage, they're no longer being made, but if you have one of these and you want to put it to use, then hopefully the video that I just presented will help you out. And you can get your vintage Daiwa or Shimano or whatever else you have back in service and take it out and go fishing with it like it was meant to be. So stay tuned, because we're heading to the creek. I'll see you there. Well, let's see how this little Daiwa reel is going to perform now. I'm going to cast it in this pool over here. This is right after I got done servicing it, so far so good. Looks like it's casting just right. This creek has changed a little bit since the last time I was here. That looks like a pretty deep spot right over there. Well, I seen him go for it, but I didn't get him. He grabbed it. Let's try him again here. That time I got him. That's a red eye, little rock bass. Pretty little guy. See if your big brother's in here. Well, there's another little red eye, little rock bass. Catching a few, just not any real good ones. See if there's another one up here. There we go. There's a little better fish. Still small, but a little bit chunkier. You know, there might be another one over there. Here we go. Oh, I missed him. He was there. Okay guys, since I rebuilt this little reel here, or I serviced it, I want to try a long cast right here, right to the edge of those rapids over there. Little reel's working just as smooth as butter. Well, we got something on here. Hey, it's a little smallmouth. Look at that little guy. All right, back you go. He was right in here. Okay, usually below one of these rapids where there's a pool, that's a good place to fish in many cases. Right along these rock shelves here. A lot of times I'll be fishing here. We'll give it a try. See what's in here. I can see clear to the bottom right here because the sun's shining through. I don't know. I got something else on here. I just happened to throw in this little deep spot right here. Let's see what we got here. Ah, a little smallmouth. Another smallmouth. Little fella. All right, go back home. See if there's another one in here. Okay, I threw in here just a minute ago and something grabbed it. I mean, just yanked it. I don't know what it was. Something on it now. There we go. Another red eye, but that wasn't no red eye that hit a while ago. I'm gonna say it was a big smallmouth, or maybe a spotted bass, one or the other. I'm gonna try it again over here. Something big over there. I don't know what it is. There we go. Oh, there's a good one. Now, that's a smallmouth there. Hey, buddy. All right. There's a pretty decent little smallmouth. Ain't that pretty? My goodness. All right, he's pretty, but we're gonna let him go. Okay, when I approach a spot like this, I try not to get too close, because I tell you, them fish can see you, especially in this clear water. There may be something laying right here. Just never know. Something grabbed it. I don't know. I'll throw back in there. There's a rock shelf right up there. I think they're coming out from under that rock. Okay, right there. A lot of times they won't hit it a second time. Nice little bluegill and stuff down in there. One little bitty bass. If there's a smallmouth or a good red eye in there, and he hits it, a lot of times you'll catch him. I mean, right away too. Here's a little blue hole right up here, kind of deep back in this corner. Just got to pitch it right under that limb there. I'm gonna come right over here. Might be something in there. Oh, something grabbed it. Man, grabbed that fire out of it. Not hooking him. There's a little buck crossing the creek. How about that? Okay, we got another fish on the end of the line here. It's another smallmouth here, I do believe. Yeah. Yeah. There we go. I caught him right at the base of that tree right there. That's a little bit better fish right there, folks. Yeah. Let me get him over here in the shallows. Pretty. How about that? Okay. Okay, we're gonna let him go too. Another red eye. Might be another smallmouth in here. Just never know. There's a red eye. That's about the best one I've caught all day. Best red eye, that is. Wow. All right. Right down there is where I caught one of my biggest red eye ever, 11 inches long. All right, well, that sun's done gone over the horizon, I believe, or it's getting ready to. I need to head on back. These old deep spots like this, that's where you catch them. A lot of times. They'll be hiding under them tree roots and rocks and stuff. There's one. No sooner said it. He's a little fella, but he was under there. All right. It's time to head back. All right. There's another red eye. They're all about the same size. I think these are all males. He sure swallowed it. There we go. What do we got here? Oh, another smallmouth. He got himself off. How about that? Caught him right in that deep spot there. Okay, on my way back up the creek, I've just been casting just randomly because you never know. Let's see what we got here. Another bass. Yep. Oh, it's a spotted or a largemouth. One or the other. There you go. Make these long casts where they can't really see you yet, and then a lot of times they'll come along and hit it. Well guys, I certainly hope that you enjoyed that little fishing expedition, because I know I did. I just absolutely love catching smallmouth bass, spotted bass, and rock bass too. They just add a little bonus to the entire experience. And being able to use an old vintage reel like this one here that I serviced and restored just is like the icing on the cake for me, because there's just something about these old reels that is kind of magical, especially if you can find one in good condition. You know, if you've got one of these put away somewhere and you need to service it, maybe this video will help you out. And if you haven't learned how to use a bait caster yet and you're an outdoorsman or a fisherman, then I would highly recommend that you become proficient with one of these, because they add so much to the experience. You know, you can make good, rock solid, accurate casts with these, and long casts as well. And you know, they're great at fighting fish. I mean, you can fight some of the meanest fish in the water with a good bait cast reel. And for me, you know, since I've been using these for so long, it just comes second nature. I know that a lot of creek fishermen especially like to use a spinning reel or a spin casting reel sometimes, but I just like these little bait casters. That's just what I've always used. I do occasionally use a spinning reel, but I just like the experience of using one of these. So if you haven't tried them, give them a try. I think you'll enjoy it. Well, my friends, I think you can tell by the fading light, I need to go ahead and close out this video, but let me mention that I really appreciate you coming along and watching. Hopefully you gained some useful information for yourself. If you have one of these old vintage reels like this one here, you know, it doesn't matter what make it is. Like I mentioned earlier, they're all generally the same. They just need a little bit of TLC to keep them going. So, you know, that's the reason I make these videos, to try to encourage you to get out there and enjoy the great outdoors, and also keep your equipment in tip-top shape. That just makes the experience so much more enjoyable. So thanks again for coming along, and remember, if you like to go hunting, fishing, camping, shooting, hiking, no matter what your outdoor pursuit happens to be, I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. But also remember this: hit that like button, smash that bell icon, and subscribe. That way you'll know when more videos like this one will be coming your way. So until next time, you all take good care of yourselves and get out there and enjoy the great outdoors. I'll be seeing you.